Thank you. I'm Councilmember Weezer. We've been joined by Councilmember Cedillo. This is the Planning and Land Use Management Committee. We will quickly go through some of the consent items and start off with the Director's Report, item 14, and then we'll go through the consent items. On item 14, anything to report?
Yes, Mike LeGrand for the record, just a brief report. We've been very successful in updating our city's webpage for the planning departments. We have a new and improved webpage that also has mobile apps where you can track not only city policies going forward and council items, as well as individual projects going through the process from either smartphones. It's available at the Google Store as well as the Google Play Store as well as the Apple Store, and it's free of charge. In addition, the Planning Commission at the last meeting considered a draft 5-year implementation plan for a strategy for our mobility plan 2035. So that was well received. As a number of major projects also went through on that day, so we're happy to see that go forward. The Department's Office of Historic Preservation and the Getty Conservation Institute will be co-hosting an event tonight at the Getty Center to showcase the new historicplacesla.org website, where you can find historic resources as well as data on historic preservation and available sites to tour as well as to preserve as we go forward in the development process. We're doing a number of interviews for planning assistant. We hope to hire over 35 planning assistants the next couple of months. Those interviews are taking place this week and next week in concert with the personnel departments. I'd like to thank them for their participation, and we look forward to getting some more resources to be able to serve the council better. I'll be available for any questions.
Thank you, sir. So with that, we could start on our items, and item number 2, we will continue to April 14th. Do we have any cards on item 2? No cards on item 2. We will continue that item to April 14th. You're welcome. Item number 3, we will approve on consent. Any cards? No cards. Item number 3, approved on consent. Item number 4, no cards, approved on consent. Item number 5, we will approve on consent as well. We will hear a full quarterly report back on Recode LA in April, but we will approve that right now on consent. It's a budgetary item for Recode LA. Item number 6, we could reapprove on consent, but we know we don't have any cards. We could approve that on consent as well. Item number 7, approve on consent. We do have a card. Let's see. Applicant representative. We're going to move this on consent. Do you still wish to speak? Rick Pardo?
Yes, good afternoon.
Welcome, sir.
Yeah, no, if you're willing to approve on consent, then I'm good with that.
I always tell people,
Yes.
You're ahead, so.
Okay. I was prepared, but I guess I don't need to be.
Thank you very much. We'll approve that on consent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Item number 9 and 10. On items 9 and 10, we will continue that item per letter submitted by the project representative. We'll continue that to April 14th in Plum and April 15th in full council. Did you get that letter, the clerk?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we did.
Okay, so we'll continue those 2 items, 9 and 10, till April 14th in Plum and April 15th in full council. So now that leaves us with the action items for today. But as I look at the action items. Item number 1, we could read that into the record, please.
Sure, Councilman. Item 1 is a communication from the mayor relative to the reappointment of Mr. Javier Nunez to the Board of Building and Safety Commissioners.
Mr. Nunez here. How are you? Good to see you again.
Good
So
afternoon.
thank you for your continued service on the Board of Commissioners, and I want to thank you for all the work you do in the community as well. You're very active.
Thank you.
And the commitment to this commission is also takes a lot of time, so we appreciate your service. And before I go on, if I could ask anybody in the audience that if you are going to speak, please take it in the highway. This room has a huge echo. The volume on the echo is really high, so please, if you are going to speak for a prolonged conversation, please take it outside in the hallway. But anything you'd like to share with us in your experience serving on this commission?
Well, you know, it's a great experience to just service the people of Los Angeles and be part of the process that one has to go through in, you know, renovating your home and making sure that, you know, you pull your permits. I tell people all the time, listen, pull a permit because you want to make sure the job gets done right, because you have inspection on it, and you don't have a problem down the line where it's going to cost you a little more. You know, there should be oversight on even auto repair. You know, there's not as much because mechanics, boy, they're good at what they do, and sometimes they're you know, there's a lot of unethical people in our world, unfortunately. But I am proud to serve. I was just sharing with Carrie from the mayor's office that when I was doing the Arleta Neighborhood Council in Arleta, and there because of my church, and boy, I tell you, I says I feel for all the councilmen and all the city officials, because boy, I tell you, I had a good experience there. But it's a good experience in what I do. I love doing what I do. I love volunteering with the city of Los Angeles because I want to give back to my community. And I think that we all need to get involved in order to make a change in our community. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. So with no objection, you will forward the recommendation of the mayor for your reappointment to the full council, and this will be in council what date?
March 31st.
So we'll see you March 31st.
Thank you.
For council.
All right,
Thank
have a
you
good
very
day.
much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Item number 11.
Item 11, Councilman, is an appeal filed by the Coronado Street Citizens Coalition. Has to do with a vesting tract map for 10 small lot single-family dwellings in CD 13.
Thank you. So is staff here to give a brief presentation, please?
Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Molina Pearson, Department of City Planning. Before you is the second level appeal of case number VTT 72898SL, which was approved by the Deputy Advisory Agency on November 19, 2014, to permit the construction of 11 small lot single family homes on a 15,260 net square foot site in the R3 1VL zone, located at 850 through 856 North Coronado Street and 847 through 853 North Merwin Street. Since the time of the first appeal was filed, the applicant modified the project, reducing the density to 10 small lot single-family homes on 10 small lots, which was approved by the East Los Angeles Area Planning Commission on February 13, 2015. The subject property has a medium residential land use with the corresponding zone of R3. The R3 zone allows density based on 800 square feet of lot area per unit, and the 1VL height district allows a maximum height of 45 feet. The applicant is permitted to construct up to 18 multifamily residential units by right. Thus, the density of the project complies with the R3 zoning of the site and the small lot subdivision ordinance. In addition, the proposed project height of 45 feet, lot areas ranging from 1,262 square feet to 1,878 square feet, lot coverage, open space, and setbacks all comply with the small lot subdivision ordinance regulation. Planning staff determined that the project would not create any potentially significant impacts on the environment. Therefore, a mitigated negative declaration was prepared and mitigation measures were incorporated. I would also like to make one correction to the setback matrix, which is located on page 7 of the letter of decisions, and a copy has also been distributed to each of you. The side yard setback for lot number 5 should be 5 feet, and the side yard setback for lot number 7 should be 0 feet. With that said, planning staff recommends that the Planning and Land Use Management Committee recommend to the City Council that they deny the appeal and sustain the decision of the East Los Angeles Area Planning Commission. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. So first, we'll go to the appellants. And Georgine Smith-Gooden. Now, did you submit, you were the appellant, right? You submitted the
I'm
appeal.
the representative of the appellant. I'm actually their neighborhood council rep. I'll be presenting the appeal on their behalf.
Okay. Ann Hers and Bill Wheelock are just supporting the appeal, correct? Is that okay? So you have 5 minutes and the other speakers have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for having us here today. I did want to make sure that council is aware that a cure and correct has been filed on this action due to substantial Brown Act violations at the APC hearing, and the response for that is still pending. So council today is being asked to hear an appeal on a decision that may be invalidated. Neighbors feel the prudent and expedient course of action is to just simply remand this back to the APC. If council elects to not go that route, here are some of the issues we have had with this planning process. The planning department insists that there is no CEQA claim for views, as this is not a scenic corridor. This rationale ignores that there are 3 separate thresholds, and that if the answer is yes to any of them, further study is required. The second threshold asks if a cherished view would be obstructed. Neighbors have presented substantial evidence in the form of photos. The cherished focal views of the observatory and Hollywood sign would be obliterated from a substantial length of Merwin Street, and that panoramic views of the sun setting over the mountains would be blocked from the Marathon Street Stairwalk, an important and historic public thoroughfare. The planning department systematically ignores this particular threshold by not requiring the applicant to submit the view sections and lines of the site required by CEQA, even though the courts have affirmed as recently as September that track maps are a project under CEQA. CEQA also requires a finite and stable project description. The applicant's own site sections, building renderings, floor plans, and letter from the representative disagree on parking configurations and the height of what is to be built facing Coronado Street. The project is so fluid, the applicant themselves can't keep it straight. Hardly finite and stable. The solar report for this project has errors regarding the length of the frontage, the depth of the property, the names of the adjacent streets, the types of structures on adjacent properties, and the number of units to be built. The applicant insults this council's intelligence by asking you to accept that these are minor typos. The neighbors contend this is evidence the solar report was simply recycled from a different project. This is one of numerous errors, issues, and discrepancies that show this project should not have been approved. The environmental assessment form and CO 6114 were not signed by the engineer who prepared them, rendering them invalid and unsubmitted. Applicant's site sections show topographic relief that differs from Bureau of Engineering's assessment by 15%. This inconsistency is a potential safety issue as this area is zoned hillside. Inaccurate slope also makes it impossible to determine the true height of the proposed buildings. Applicant has resubmitted the solar report to Plum, still with errors in property frontage and depth, and had the engineer revise his slope assessment. This does not satisfy the law. Recently, at a hearing for a project on Waverly Street, Mr. Kim stated that small lot driveways constitute private roads and must be a minimum of 20 feet wide, plus gutter, plus sidewalk if required. The original map submitted met that requirement, but subsequent revisions submitted after the public hearing, revisions that were made to include the conditioned guest parking, have reduced that driveway access to only 14 feet with 3 feet of sidewalk on each side. That does not constitute a 20-foot driveway clear to the sky and is in violation of what Mr. Kim told us at a separate hearing. The project map is illegal and state law requires it be denied. If the applicant is so lax about meeting the conditions for approval and the planning department is so laissez-faire about ignoring these deficiencies, how can the public expect that the conditions of the MND and determination letter will be met once construction begins? The LA Times answered that for you in their article on January 6th. The headline, "In LA, conditions placed on developers go unheeded." Please do not let that happen here. Please, either grant this appeal and deny the map or remand it back to the APC for a new hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann Hars. After Ann Hars is Bill Wheelock.
Hi, Ann Hurst.
I'm sorry, you have 1 minute after the applicant has, or the applicant or the appellants have 5 minutes. Each of the other speakers have 1 minute. So you have 1 minute. From who? From? Okay. I was looking for it. All right. Matthew Hayden, applicant,
Yes.
representing the applicant.
Yes, good afternoon.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, council members. My name is Matthew Hayden with 360 4309 Overland Avenue, Culver City, California, 90230. On behalf of the applicant, UB 846852 Coronado Street, LLC, I request that the Planning and Land Use Management Committee deny the subject appeal because it lacks foundation in law and policy of the city. We have submitted a letter to the Plum Committee that should have been in your packet to review the details. The proposed project is designed wholly consistent with all adopted ordinances and codes related to the development of a small lot subdivision. The proposed project is designed entirely consistent with the Silver Lake Echo Park Elysian Valley Community Plan and the Los Angeles Municipal Code. The project is allowed and implements the medium residential land use designation within the community plan, and the proposed density is 44% less than the 18 units permitted by the underlying R3 zone. The applicant has made claims that the project provides inadequate setbacks, an overheight building, lacks common open space, and a project that is inconsistent with the surroundings. However, the proposed project is entirely consistent with LAMC Section 1222C27, which is established by the SLO Ordinance and all of its requirements. The surrounding neighborhood is Zone 4 and characterized by multifamily development. Thus, the opposition to this project is not based on any basis of a violation of actual adopted codes or ordinances, but on the speculation of impact of a project not substantiated by any findings or factual information. Despite the continued opposition to this project, the applicant has made substantial physical changes to the project during the course of development review, including changing building materials, reorienting the front-facing units towards the street, lowering the overall height of the buildings, providing guest parking, and removing a unit. The applicant has continued to refine the project plans and work with the community, including conducting a community meeting on January 26, 2015, just prior to the APC appeal hearing on this project. The purpose of the community meeting was to present the project, related information, and revisions to the design to the members of the community who believe that they had not been able to participate in the public review of the project. We believe in this project because it implements the city's housing and land use policies. It is important to understand that this is an infill housing proposal. The proposed project will redevelop the subject site with new housing, and the new subdivision and housing will result in fee-simple lots that will offer new homeownership opportunities to the community. The City of Los Angeles is in a housing crisis and has been for some time. The current housing element targets the production of 82,000 units to meet the city's needs, but current projections only indicate that approximately 59,000 will be built. This leaves a 22,000 unit deficit. This project will support the city's housing production goals. As previously stated, the proposed project is entirely consistent with the Subdivision Map Act, the General Plan, and the Los Angeles Municipal Code, and thus there is no legal or factual basis for this appeal. We understand that the project will result in a change to the neighborhood, and we respect these concerns. However, none of these concerns are a basis for denying the project. Therefore, on behalf of the applicant, I respectfully request that the Planning and Land Use Management Committee recommend that the City Council deny the project appeal and uphold the decision of the East Los Angeles Area Planning Commission in this case, approving a 10-unit small lot subdivision. Thank you.
Anhars. After Anhars is Bill Wheelock.
Hi, Ann Hars, 812 North Coronado Street. 5 residential units are going to be demolished that are affordable, that people can live in, and these people are going to be displaced. They cannot find rent for the rent that they're paying anywhere in the neighborhood. Please keep that in mind. It's very serious. We have an affordable housing crisis, not just a housing crisis. We don't need more luxury units, certainly not in this neighborhood. And if you look at the general plan, you'll see that that is the case. It's mandated that we provide housing for all segments of our population. But it is somewhat disingenuous for the representative to say that no laws are being broken when the MAP Act is being, which is a state law, says that 66473, a local agency, shall disapprove a map for failure to meet or perform any of the requirements or conditions imposed by this division or local ordinance enacted pursuant thereto. So a forged solar report doesn't count. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Wheelock. And after Bill is Rebecca Taylor.
Hello, I'm Bill Wheelock. I also live at 812 North Coronado Street. The developer has claimed the small lot guidelines are advisory and cannot serve as the basis for the denial of a project. Yet, the MAP Act gives local policies and standards the power to approve or deny developments. In a memo from Michael LeGrand, he says, quote, all small lot subdivisions filed after February 1st, 2014 must comply with or meet with the intent of the 2014 Small Lot Design Guidelines, unquote. The MAP Act clearly states that the local ordinances, policies, and standards shall be upheld as long as these ordinances, policies, and standards are not in opposition to the MAP Act. Jay Kim and other advisory agencies have the right and the responsibility to employ the small lot guidelines when deciding on a tract map according to state law, since they are our city's standards.
Thank you. Rebecca Taylor, Michelle Carr.
Good afternoon. My name is Rebecca Taylor. I live at 622 North Coronado Street. I have concerns about the zoning of the area where this development is planned. The block of the Coronado-Merwin development is zoned R3, while the surrounding neighborhood is all zoned RD2. According to the zoning rules, this allows the minimum area per dwelling unit to be nearly half as small as that of the surrounding neighborhood, 800 to 1,200 square feet per unit instead of 2,000 square feet. I believe that the Coronado-Merwin location is incorrectly zoned R3 and is an instance of spot zoning that needs to be corrected before a permit is issued for development. Spot zoning refers to the discriminatory zoning of select parcels that are surrounded by land within a different zone. It provides unjustified special treatment that benefits a particular owner while undermining the pre-existing rights and uses of adjacent property owners. And I believe this is the case with the Coronado-Merwin project. It's incumbent upon city planners to identify such poor planning policy and correct it. The zoning needs to be corrected, and then the project needs to be redesigned to conform to the correct zoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle Carr, Ann Sperling.
Hello, Michelle Carr, native Angelino. The historic stairways of Silver Lake and Echo Park are a unique feature of this neighborhood. Books have been published, tours are given, movies are shot on and around these stairways. The Marathon Stairway is across the street from the proposed project. From this public stairway, we enjoy a scenic panoramic view of world-famous landmarks such as the Hollywood sign, the Griffith Park Observatory, and the Hollywood Hills. This 42-foot project completely blocks the currently unobstructed views of these important sites from the public right-of-way on this stairway. permanently blocking the views of the Hollywood Hills, and setting new height precedents does not provide for the area's compatibility of uses, nor does it consider the social well-being of the residents. The project must be modified to allow that these vistas be preserved, which is entirely possible. I'm asking you to send this project back for revision to correct this problem. The CEQA guidelines ask, would this project have a substantial adverse effect on the scenic vista? The answer is yes.
Thank you. Annie Sperling and David Modera.
Good afternoon. I have a couple of visuals. The proposal was not only looked at by the APC, but the APC spent hours with us trying to find guidelines to uphold many of the things we're speaking about. They begged and pleaded with the city's attorneys to find guidelines. The small lot guidelines would not allow this project. They speak about it lowering in size. This is the view that we're speaking about. This is a view from the historic stairs. These are people every day sitting, watching the sunset, hiking. Lovers go here. This is part of our neighborhood, an important part that we cherish. This is what's going to happen. This shows the next building that they're calling a 3-story building. All the 3-story buildings in this neighborhood embed into a hillside. The largest point of this building is the highest point on the hill. This is what it would look like when it's finished. We're imploring you to look at the guidelines and let us utilize them as the APC has begged us to in many meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. David Modern.
David Modern, 863 Hyperion Avenue. I'd like to point out that the project does not meet the zoning code requirements. While it's true that the ordinance does exempt the project from certain code sections, but it does not exempt it from section 1210 R3 multiple dwelling zone, where it requires an additional foot of side yard setback for all stories over 2. It also does not exempt the project from sections 1203 and 1221G, which would require open space. And the 14-foot driveway does not comply with either the 20-foot private street or the DOT driveway requirements. And I have Jake Kim actually on record stating that because of the fact that this is a small lot, there's a common access driveway that is functioning as a private street. In other words, the small lot would actually be defined as a lot based on that application. So the driveway should actually be 20 feet, not 14. Thank you.
Very much. CD 13 here. Council District 13.
Hello, Councilman. Our office is currently pushing for an amendment to the small lot ordinance, as we believe that there are some issues with the ordinance related to neighborhood compatibility outcomes. But however, in regards to specific small lot cases and this particular case, we defer to the advice of the city attorney. And in regards to the legal standing of this particular project, what we've been advised is that it's in compliance with the small lot ordinance and the underlying zoning of the site. So thus, we ask that the appeal be denied and that the position of the Area Planning Commission be upheld. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now, can we bring staff back up, please? Well, thank you. In the appeal, the appellants mentioned that advice was given at the APC that it could only rely on the Subdivision Map Act to make a decision, and that they didn't have to rely on the small lot ordinance guidelines. Is that somehow detrimental to decision making or in error of any of our rules?
Good afternoon. Jay Kim, Senior City Planner, Deputy Advisory Agency. As the Council Office mentioned, there is a recognition that the small lot ordinance should be taken another look at. There's a difference between the ordinance itself, which actually is a part of our exceptions code, which permits a bit more permissive than our standard code, such as yards. The design guidelines is a separate document which staff uses to address some of more of the community level issues. In terms of the decision, that the APC will be looking at is really under the MAP Act, which is the state law that looks at whenever you want to cut up land to subdivide for the sale, lease, and transaction of lots. That's the governing set of rules that the decision-making body should be looking at. In terms of the ordinance, that functions as an implementing tool. In other words, the governing rule and the implementing tools that really regulate how a subdivision for small lots should be approved or disapproved. In that sense, the APC did sustain the Deputy Advisory Agency's decision in saying that it was approved according to those rules.
Okay, thank you. And another issue that was brought up is that there was an erroneous environmental assessment report. Any response to that?
For a project of this size, 10 units in an R3 1VL zone, 18 units of an apartment 45 foot high could be built. If it's an apartment, that's a by right project and a building permit could be pulled. In this case, the city has taken a position to disclose the facts in terms of let's take a more conservative look, and the MND was a process so that we as staff could analyze the project a little bit more. In that sense, it's been fully mitigated. It is less than significant to a less than significant level where there's no violation in terms of the CEQA rules.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Okay, thank you. Having heard this case and seeing the documents, I agree with Council District 13 that we need to review the small lot ordinance and make some changes to that. It's an issue that has not only raises some problematic issues to protect the integrity of neighborhoods throughout the city, but it's something that's long overdue to look at. In this particular case, given the rules that exist and what the APC decided, I didn't see anything in error, so I'll agree with CD. I'll move a motion to agree with CD 13 and to deny the appeal and sustain the East LA APC decision. Is there a second for that? Second? Okay, so ordered. Thank you. Next item, please.
Would you like to hear number 12, Councilman, or back to number 8?
Number 12?
Yes, 12, Councilman, is an appeal by Henry Ramirez. He's appealing the entire action of the West LA APC relative to the conversion of a rec room into a third dwelling unit within an existing duplex in CD12.
Okay. Staff, welcome.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Kevin Jones. I'm a city planner for the planning department and was the hearing officer that presented this project to the West Los Angeles Area Planning Commission. What was proposed, as he stated before, is the conversion of a recreation room into a third dwelling unit on an existing lot of approximately 3,412 feet that currently has a duplex. They asked for 3 exceptions from the Venice specific plan, including allowing 3 dwelling units in lieu of 2 on a lot that's currently zoned R3. The specific plan only allows 2 dwelling units on lots of this side in this sub-area. They also asked for a reduction in parking where a guest parking lot or a guest parking space should be provided. So it would be 2 spaces for each dwelling unit plus 1 for guests. So they can provide 6, but they are only allowed to, they only have room for 6 rather than supplying 7. The hearing I held was back in September 29, 2014. Then on December 3rd, the Planning Commission considered the request for the coastal development permit, the specific plan project permit compliance, the project and the specific plan exceptions. The Planning Department recommended denial of the requests, mostly because when you look at the Los Angeles Municipal Code regarding the findings that one has to make for a specific plan exception, we could not find reasons for granting them. The most important one is that that strict application of the regulations of the specific plan to the subject property would result in practical difficulties or unnecessary hardships inconsistent with the general purpose and intent of the specific plan. there are exceptional, number 2 is that there are exceptional circumstances or conditions applicable to the subject property involved or to the intended use of the development of the subject property that do not apply generally to other property in the specific plan areas. It's primarily because of those 2 findings, which are necessarily strict in their application, because specific plans were created to guide development within a certain area to address certain problems or issues that the community identified, which is why the findings are strict and that is a high level of compatibility that needs to be met on that. Given that the planning department could not recommend or make the findings relative to those 2 findings, we recommended disapproval of the project. You will hear from the applicant that there's nothing unusual about the shape. The development as a 3-story duplex is typical of all the other buildings in that neighborhood, and so it's hard to make those findings, which is why we recommended disapproval of it. The West Los Angeles Area Planning Commission concurred with our findings about those they concurred with the planning department about those findings and also recommend or disapprove the requests. It should be noted that for Plum to consider is that the Venice Neighborhood Council and their land use committee recommended approval of the project to the planning department in November and also to the area planning commission. And I think the packet that you have may include a letter from the neighborhood council that recommends approval of it. The reason for that is that I believe that the applicant is proposing to make the 3rd unit affordable to certain income levels, which is one of those dichotomies of the planning department. How do we get affordable housing in an area that desperately needs it? However, the findings make it difficult for us to grant them. You may have heard about the density bonus provisions that are typical in that, but the problem with that is that those provisions are only available to projects where you have 5 or more dwelling units. In this one, it's a duplex. They're providing 1 dwelling unit, and so we're not able to access those benefits under the density bonus provisions.
Is that out of, is that some type of ordinance that prohibits that, or is it just a policy lane, some planning department?
Well, the specific plan is an ordinance. And
it's in the specific plan.
Yes, in the specific plan about the number of dwelling units on a given lot of a certain size. So in this particular sub area, you're only allowed 2. They ask for the exception to have a 3rd one in there. You will hear from the applicant that they wish to turn that dwelling unit, that 3rd dwelling unit, into affordable unit, but that's something that the planning department can't consider following the provisions of 1157 of the municipal code. And with that, I'll step aside and await any questions, and then you can hear from the applicant.
Can I ask our city attorney and your interpretation of that? I've heard of something similar to this in the past, and I thought that we could overrule that somehow.
Well, as a general proposition, if you're going to require affordable housing, you have to have the authority somewhere in your code. We don't currently have an inclusionary ordinance which requires people to provide affordable housing. We have it in the coastal areas under the Mellow Act, and we of course have the state density bonus law. But otherwise we have a problem because you have to make nexus requirements and so forth. So it's a difficult. It is fraught with legal difficulty.
Okay, thank you. So we'll hear from the applicant and appellant, Henry. Is it Ramirez?
Yes, sir.
Henry Ramirez.
Good afternoon, council members. First of all, this Henry Ramirez, 21 Boyer Street. I just want to say first of all that this project, it is not a precedent. I permitted projects of this scale and different scales before, and they were approved by the Area Planning Commission in West LA, and they were approved too also by City Council. I submitted examples with higher densities because at the end, the purpose of these projects is to be able to provide some type of affordable housing in an area that lacks of affordable housing. And if you review actually chapter 3 of the land use policy objective, it says to preserve the housing stock and to actually provide for the expansion of it. Not only the Venice land use policies support this project, but also the Coastal Act also support these type of projects if we provide as affordable housing. When some people say to me that planning is just a bunch of codes and rules, I disagree with that. I have several years of experience working in architecture and planning, and also with my professors, we concluded planning is a process to just maintain and preserve safe and healthy communities, but also to create and maintain very socioeconomically strong communities, but overall maintaining to create inclusive communities, to be able to accommodate every possible income. The general plan, the major, there's several documents that support affordable housing. We receive support from the Venice Neighborhood Council, from the Land Use Committee. I spoke to different members of the California Coastal Commission. They are pro-affordable housing, and actually the Coastal Act says that as long as you're close to the density, they support the project. Something to take in consideration here in one of his findings is the lot area, the density. We are very shy. We're 60 feet below the density requirement. However, this lot is a special case because the Venice specific plan requires us to encroach into the public right-of-way. And we have to actually put that part of land as part of the insurance of the land. So it runs with the land. It's 490 square feet that I will be able to count as part of the area, and I will comply with the density. When it comes to parking, we're just talking about an 830 square foot unit, a one bedroom unit with 2 parking spaces. If I follow the zoning code, I will have to just to provide 1 parking space. So in the merits of this project, I respectfully ask you to consider the approval of this project.
Thank you. I can't read the name here, but I think it's Adi Adenoli. Yeah. Afterwards is Robin Rudisill.
Good afternoon. Ade Adewale. I'm a Venice Beach resident, and we would like to have more low-income apartments available for people who are not able to afford like the high cost of housing down in Venice. We felt, being that he's going to have one of the units being affordable housing, that would be a good idea in order to maintain some of the historical value of the city of Venice and also the affordability of apartments in Venice. If it was an apartment complex that would be like a high-rise apartment with several units that nobody could afford to live in, nobody of a medium income could afford to live in, I would understand denying his application. But being that he's going to include lower income, at least one lower income resident there, I think that'd be a good idea to approve his application.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Robin Rudisill and Jimmy Quiston.
Hi, I'm Robin Rudisill, and I am chair of the Venice Land Use and Planning Committee, and I'm here representing the Venice Neighborhood Council today. I just gave your secretary a copy of the letter from the Venice Neighborhood Council with our recommendation on this project. I was personally involved. I was a co-LUPIC staff with another person who went out to the site and spoke with neighbors and observed the situation and actually looked at this area as to be the new unit. And I'd like to read our recommendation, which is the VNC board recommends approval of the project as presented, and it was a unanimous VNC board vote. And I just wanted to add, and I told this to the Area Planning Commission as well, that we're not making a specific recommendation on the type of affordable housing. We hope that you or whoever is the correct body will deem this as an affordable unit, but whether it's medium, low, very low is according to your normal procedures. But we appreciate your consideration of this. We want to at least maintain or try to increase affordable housing in Venice. Thanks.
Jim McQuiston, Ludia Ponce.
Jim McQuiston, you have my statement. I support the West LA APC. It's about time that the city of Los Angeles really obeyed the law. We have some state law that says we have to do certain things, and we've just depended on emotions. If we quit depending on emotions, then we get good plans. And if we get good plans, then we don't have to worry about things like this. So I think that's really what we want to do. We want to stick with the law. We don't want to continue our 42 years of being outlaws. And you talk to any state judge and he'll tell you the same thing.
Thank you. Lydia Ponce, Baker Batizadequet.
Lydia Ponce of Venice. Here we have a real strange situation where typically, the findings on a lot of the applications in Venice decimate affordable housing, take away any affordability, and it's never to be seen again. And here you have an appellant appealing his own project to provide that. I'm for this project because simply it puts something back in the marina. And here we are. I don't understand how these specific findings stick. And there's other projects that have been given findings with 2 sentences or very weak paperwork to document the mellow or RSO or any of it. And all of a sudden, the project's just done. The building's obliterated, and there's something there for a single-family dwelling. So the third unit should be extremely low, or moderate, and nothing less is acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you. It's either Baker or Beher. Batizadekin? No. I think it's a B-A-H-A-R. B-E-H-A-R-K-E-R. No. Robert Yeager and Ivan Guzman after Robert Yeager. Robert Yeager, right here. Ivan Guzman.
Good afternoon. I would like to support the position of the APC. The problem here is that there's so many different tools being used in Venice. This is just one of them, where this isn't going to end up being a conversion, and they don't have any mechanisms in place to assure that this will in fact remain an affordable unit, and that's the problem that I have. This is asking for less square footage than what's necessary. It's asking for less parking. It's asking for more height. So I am in total agreement with the APC, and thank you for making that decision. We need more decisions like that. So please do not approve this, because it creates a problem for the community. They're not enforceable. Right now, it's not happening in Venice anywhere. There's no replacement affordable housings, and even if they say it on paper, it's not done. Nobody is monitoring it. So please side with the APC. Thank you.
Chris Robertson from Council District 11.
Good afternoon, Chris Robertson, Deputy Director of Land Use and Planning for Councilmember Mike Bonin of the 11th District. Conceptually, we think this is a great idea. We would love to be able to support the project and get an affordable unit anywhere in our district, but particularly in Venice. Unfortunately, like you heard earlier, there is no mechanism in place right now to mandate that additional unit be maintained as affordable. We would love to change this either through recode efforts or through our upcoming efforts through the LCP. However, we don't have this tool at our disposal currently. So for those reasons, we see no reason to overturn APC's decision.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay. Well, thank you very much. And I think the last 2 speakers kind of summarizes the motion I'm about to make, which is we wholeheartedly support the intent of creating more affordable housing, and it's something that the City of LA needs to put more focus on. However, here there's really no mechanism by which to do it, or even if we did, there's no mechanism by which we could, in the long term, make this enforceable, that it remain affordable. So even if we say we're going to skip the rules because we, on a public policy, from a public policy point of view, we want more affordable housing, we'll allow you to do it. There's nothing that can allow us to enforce that and make it affordable housing for the future. So I'll move to deny the appeal and support the APC decision on this. Second, so ordered. Thank you very much. Next item.
Item 13, Councilman, is an appeal by Mike Hernandez from the decision of the East LA relative
Well, actually, why don't we do number 8 first?
Sure.
And then we will do 13, because I think Mr. Cedillo needs to recuse himself from 13.
Yes.
And then we could get through number 8.
Yes, number 8, council members, is a proposed interim control ordinance. One is for various communities captured under the proposed historic preservation overlay zones, and the other one captures 12 communities covering council districts 2, 4, 5, 10, 11, 12, and 14.
Welcome.
Good afternoon. Ken Bernstein here along with Tom Rothman from Department of City Planning. We are back before the committee on these 2 interim control ordinances. These were heard by the committee on February 24th and continued 3 weeks for further consideration today. And just to provide a brief summary, these interim control ordinances are part of our department's comprehensive neighborhood conservation package. It is a 4-pronged approach to address the concerns of neighborhood conservation across the city. The interim control ordinances are meant to address some of those communities that are seeing the greatest development pressures and are in many ways quite fragile. 5 proposed historic preservation overlay zone neighborhoods. These are proposed historic districts for which significant historic resource survey work has been completed. And then a large number of other neighborhoods where we have a series of anti-mansionization controls that are proposed that Mr. Rothman will describe. We would be following up on these interim control ordinances as well with proposed amendments to the baseline mansionization ordinance, the BMO, as well as implementation of zoning measures through our Recode LA program. So we're happy to answer any questions, and Tom Rothman can present the additional ICO and some of the activities since our last committee meeting.
Good afternoon, Tom Rothman, a senior planner at the Planning Department. Last month, on February 24th, as Mr. Bernstein said, we were here to present these 2 ICOs for the 5 historic neighborhoods and for the 15 other neighborhoods. I did read some of the language from that interim control ordinance into the record. I don't know if there's a need to do that again, but we have made some minor changes in the revision today. I would like to read just 2 paragraphs. Those are for 2 categories that affect 4 of these 15 neighborhoods. So I'm going to read for paragraph D that affects Lower Council District 5, Kentwood, and Mar Vista, and East Venice. The paragraph was rewritten to remove the garage exemption from the exception in that section. So I will read it. Notwithstanding any section of the LAMC, no building permit shall issue for a project in Lower Council District 5, Kentwood, or Mar Vista, East Venice, unless the proposed structure's residential floor area, without exceptions for detached accessory buildings, porches, patios, and breezeways, and over in height ceilings, does not exceed the base residential floor area set forth in the zoning code. No residential floor area bonus shall be allowed for green building, proportional stories, or front facade articulation. That was a change that basically we removed the exception for the garages, which does permit the additional 400 square feet to be added to the size of a new single-family home. The other section, F, for Bel Air, the language was changed to modify it from exempting 6,000 cubic yards of exempted grading to 6,000 cubic yards of exempted import and export of fill. And that language now says, notwithstanding any section of the LAMC, no building permit shall issue for a project in Bel Air or on a hillside area lot where the import and export of exempted graded earth exceeds 6,000 cubic yards. And we actually made that further change just now on the floor of exempted graded earth. So that was a further change. So we have 2 changes from the previous ordinance and then 1 recent change just now of adding the word exempted graded earth. So the other areas, the other 5 categories for the 15 neighborhoods still stand as being modifications to the size of single-family homes. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. And as you know, this is a set of interim control ordinances that would help out-of-scale development pressure in many of LA's single-family neighborhoods and just general neighborhoods. A few years ago, at the tail end of the last boom, we made some efforts to address this, adopting the baseline mansionization and hillside ordinances. But as we've seen, it needs some changes now to make sure we get it right. The ICOs before us today simply create the time to have these important conversations about compatible development in the future of single-family neighborhoods throughout LA. With that said, these came before us on February 24th. We had a public hearing then. With the exception of the one Bel Air hillside ordinance, we are now required to have a full hearing on everything, with the 2 exceptions. But what I will do, since I know there's a lot of interest in this, we do have a number of cards. We'll probably be here for an hour or 2 if we get through all of them. But I will allow 10 minutes for the people who are for it, 10 minutes who are against it, and 5 minutes.
Yeah, Councilman, I just want to advise you that if you do this, they'll have to have another public hearing on the new amendments in full council.
What do you mean? If we allow public comment now?
Yes, if you're going to truncate it to just a particular amount of time, if certain people are not able to speak, everybody needs to be able to participate for the public hearing requirement. But you can limit it to the new amendments that were not addressed at the prior public hearing.
I see.
So you should give a discrete amount of time to each speaker. It can be a minute.
Okay. In order
to fulfill the public hearing requirement on the new
one. That's what I see what you're saying.
Yes.
Those do require, but I can't differentiate what they're going to speak on.
Yes.
And I was saying, okay. So we're going to hear all of them. And I do ask that if somebody has made a point that you were thinking of making, please summarize it or say I agree with that person or whatever it is. Try to keep your comments short. We do have 3 council offices that want to speak. Would you like to speak now or after the public comment? Okay, we'll take the 3 council offices now, and then we'll get through the cards. Each speaker has 1 minute.
Yes, and again, I just want to remind the audience that they should be limiting their remarks to the changes to the ordinance that were addressed by the planning staff.
Okay, thank you. Renee Weitzer, Council District 4, Tom LaBonge.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Councilman Cedillo. I'm here on behalf of Councilman Tom LaBonge to urge you to support these ordinances. This morning there was an excellent editorial in the LA Times. I don't know if you've seen it or read it, but I'm just going to quote a couple of lines from it and be real brief. The purpose of these ordinances is to preserve the character of the neighborhoods, which means, among other things, keeping the scale of the housing intact. That's the LA Times. So I hope that you support this ordinance and move it on. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I missed that editorial. I don't read that editorial anymore. Sean Bayless from Council District 8. I'm sorry, it's number 8, Council District 5.
Yes, sir. We've got a meeting ahead of us, so I'll make this very brief. We're obviously very supportive of these ICOs moving forward. Our district has a large amount of interest in that, and these ICOs cover a large portion of our district as well. We made the small change to the Hillside Bel Air ICO in order to give maximum flexibility while also taking a tremendous amount of trucks off of the street. But also calling out the exempted grading because we also have to deal with remedial grading in the hillsides where it includes health and safety issues, which are separate. And of course, none of these ICOs, including that one, will include previous approvals or applications that have been filed. And we're certainly supportive and would like to see this move forward today. And happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Tricia Keene, Council District 11.
Good afternoon. We too continue to support the ICOs. Would like to see them move forward with the changes that were noted for the record today. Thank you.
All right, those in support, again, try to keep your comments to the two new amendments. Otherwise, just briefly state your support or quickly. Daniel Love and then Dan Fisk.
I'm Daniel Love. I live at 850 Stone Canyon Road in the Bel Air area. And Dan Fisk is here with me today representing the Bel Air Alliance.
Mr. Chairman, I'm chairman of the Alliance. We wholeheartedly support the ICO as amended. We have nearly 250 petitioners in the community of Bel Air who support the ICO conceptually. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Julia Wasson, Cheryl Holland. After Cheryl Holland is Alice Cassidy.
Julia Wasson, we continue to support the Historic Preservation Overlay Zone and the ICO that will help us move that through. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Cheryl Holland, President of Sunset Square. There's two ICOs. We really urge that at least the very first one get moved forward. There doesn't seem to be any opposition to it, so I'd like to just get our pending historic neighborhoods protected. Thank you.
Thank you. Alice Cassidy, Ken Hickson, James O'Sullivan.
I'm Alice Cassidy, Vice President, Miracle Mile Residential Association, here to support that this move forward. And just to point out that since we've been here on the 24th, in our neighborhood, a small single residence house has come down, and the developer is now talking about putting a pool and a cabana in back and a 6-foot wall from the backyard all the way past the driveway. So I just want to really impress upon you how quickly we need action on this. And thank you.
Great, thank you. Ken, is that Nixon or Hickson? Hickson.
I'm Ken Hickson, Vice President of the Miracle Mile Residential Association. We support wholeheartedly all these ICOs. It's time to move them along, and it's time to get the Department of Planning to assign more employees to moving RFA and HPOC applications through the process. Thank you.
Thank you.
James O'Sullivan, President, Miracle Mile Residential Association. We support everything that's already been, all the testimony that's gone on the record to support all of these and the two amendments that you have before you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Roger Curtis, Leo Tun Talks, Tamara Bergman.
My name is Roger Curtis. We've lived at Harper and Rosewood for 31 years. We firmly support the implementation of the ICOs and urge the committee to move forward immediately. I did a survey this morning in the 8 blocks between Orlando and Crescent Heights, Beverly Boulevard, and Melrose. There are 29 projects under demolition and construction, 47 large outsized houses built, a total of 76 houses in just our immediate neighborhood. Please pass this ICO immediately. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Leo Tapp. I live in the same neighborhood, Harper and Rosewood. And our neighborhood looks like after Second War. Before we hear just birth, and now we hear from 6 o'clock in the morning, jackhammers, excavator, big cars. It's something unbelievable. It's not acceptable. Please help us to save our beautiful neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tamara Bergman. I'm the treasurer of the Sunset Square neighborhood, which is one of the HPOZ areas, which we hope that you pass both of these ICOs. We're in support of both of them. And at the beginning of the meeting, I couldn't see, I think it was Councilmember Huizar who mentioned the new resource at the Getty with the new website. And our neighborhood was surveyed by the Getty, but there's not going to be any cultural resource left to look at on that website if you don't protect us with these ICOs. Thank you.
Thank you. Savannah Brandt, Diane Eisel, Robert Eisel.
Good afternoon. I am totally in support of the ICOs as well. I live in the 500 block of North Harper Avenue, and please restore the peace to our neighborhoods. I used to wake up to birds, now I wake up to trucks and jolted awake at 6:30 in the morning, and our neighborhood is being destroyed little by little. Please pass these ICOs today. Thank you, and happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
You need to look at me.
Pardon me?
You need to look at me when
Oh,
I'm
okay.
speaking.
I'm sorry, I was looking to see who's the next speaker.
Well,
Okay.
welcome back.
Thank you.
I have great respect for all of you who have to make these tough decisions, but sometimes we can't see the forest through the trees. Let's use common sense here, please. I'm here to say that I'm in support of all these amendments and restrictions. An entire population has been awakened here like a sleeping giant, and you're just simply not going to be able to shove it back into the bottle. Please be brave. Stand up for what you know is right. You can see how hard people in city planning have worked on this. They are city planners of the city of LA, this great city. Please vote in favor of these items and changes for number 8. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bob Isley, Vice President of the La Brea Hancock Homeowners Association, and we fully support the ICOs, the BMO amendments, the RFAs, and the HPOZs. One point that's never been made in here, I've been to almost all these meetings since these issues have come up, is that toxic demolitions in our neighborhood, 2 notices of violations have been served to developers for asbestos and lead poisoning pollution. Their property right is to destroy ours and to maximize their profits. Please support these zoning ordinances. Thank you.
Louis Leal, Tammy Party, and William Cusman.
My name's Louis Leal. I'm from Venice, California. I'm opposed to this just for the reason that my specific area of Venice was kind of thrown into this mix with all these other areas of LA during the holiday season. I feel that these things should be separated out individually. Another thing is about notification. I'm a resident, stakeholder, and homeowner in my neighborhood, which I find sacred and sanct for myself personally and my wife. I was never notified about these meetings. I found out through a friend that these were actually happening. I feel that it was now in the 11th hour, and it seems like the train has left the station. But without notification, I feel like due process is not actually being heard. I disagree with this gentleman here, the city attorney, that states that only the amendments to these things can actually be discussed today. You need to roll this back and get everyone involved to actually get a pure vote on what is actually happening and get the stakeholders to report on it. We've just gone through the biggest recession that we've actually experienced. A lot of the building and demolition that everyone's talking about was ceased for 4 years. An extrapolation of the data going back to the last time that data census shows that building was actually done prior to the recession. These things need to be analyzed and then discussed in a public forum, and I missed out on that because you didn't notify me.
Thank you. Tammy Pardee and William Cusman.
I support the changes to the ICO that were just made here for Venice. My name is Tammy Pardee. I'm from Venice, California. As Louis said, the ICO was not told to people in Venice, and I'm all for good growth and for it, but people should have been notified that this was happening and work together as a community instead of just giving a flat line like this is going. Thank you.
Thank you. William Cusman, Mark Darnouche, Alexis Rappaport.
I'd really like to have one more minute, but I'm going to try and do it. I hereby request the removal of the Old Granada Hills area from the proposed ICO because there is no evidence that there's a proliferation of large box-like structures, past, present, or an indication that it's going to happen in the future. The evidence is quite the contrary. All our flippers have been one-story, very modest additions with the highest floor area ratio of Flipper and Old Granada Hills at 25.5%. We don't have this. The city planning has not properly vetted Granada Hills. All these statements about us have been grouped in with the affluent communities. We are not affluent community. I understand the problem for these people. I agree with them. But for Old Granada Hills, there's no proof that a problem of mansionization exists, and you have the comps right there in your hand. I've lived in the neighborhood for 30 years, so I know what's going on. And as a broker, what the last gentleman said, owners are not going to know to disclose this ICO to the buyers if you haven't noticed them and heard their feelings.
Thank you. Tammy Party. No, did we heard, what is your name? Oh, yes, Alexis.
Good afternoon. I came on the 24th and learned about the historic, the HBOZ component of this, and I fully support that, and I think you should separate out the second component. I'm a design professional. I do green renovations of existing properties. I'm completely sympathetic with wanting to get rid of bulky McMansion-esque development, and but this ordinance, the way it's written, it has some components that are still not right, in my view. I am super happy and appreciative that you removed the garage, that you gave back the exemption for the garage component of the discounts, but I do believe also the covered patios should be kept. There are many people that have been voicing the same sentiments in our community on a petition that's on change.org. Many design professionals, in fact, that are saying, and I agree with this, that piece of it is important to keep variety, architectural variety, and we're not talking about a lot of square footage. The other thing I want to just make note of is, please let me finish, is that I don't understand why the 20%...
Your time is up. If I permit you, I have to permit everyone else.
Just one last statement.
You.
The 20% bonus is not being taken away in the Palisades and Brentwood. Affluent communities, property values in these less affluent communities in Lower District 5, Mar Vista, East Venice, are not...
You have to end your time now because we need to be fair to everyone.
I think you understand my point. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Catherine Gopal-Lissing, Diane Gross, and Richard Rossetti.
Good afternoon. Thank you for hearing us. I would like to speak to you about this ICO and first speak about separating the two items because you've heard some changes that have been entered in today. I think that we really do need to separate these two. And I speak before you about the item number 2. I'm very pleased that we've made some changes on it today, but I also feel that there was inadequate notice given to homeowners. As a residential homeowner in the Lower District Council 5, I was only notified in the last hearing on the 24th, and I feel that in that time we've come before you, we've reached out, and we've garnered support for changes to be made. And for that reason, I think you need to separate these two items, and you need to at least move separate item number 2 forward so that we can have proper hearing and inform the homeowners so they're fully informed before decisions are made on this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Diane Gross and Richard Rossetti.
So my objection to this ICO is very limited. I'm only objecting to Lower Council District 5, Kentwood, Mar Vista, and East Venice, just 6 zip codes that are included in this ICO. And I started a grassroots petition. I have it here. I have nearly 700 signatures. It was just me sending out to neighbors who send it out to other neighbors, people who are objecting. And the reason why they're objecting, they find this ICO undemocratic. And the reason why is for 2 reasons. There hasn't been notice. As someone had said before, in the 11th hour, our area was put into this ICO. If you look at Paul Koretz's website, Councilman Paul Koretz's website, there's no note, there's no mention of our neighborhoods. There are 13 neighborhoods mentioned, not our neighborhood is in there. I went to the West Side Neighborhood Council meeting. It was agendized on February 12th. On that same day, when it was on the agenda, they voted to put support, to put our ICO in there. People didn't have notice. They don't know what's happening. The system is broken. So that's my first objection. My other objection is what this other speaker was trying to say, is the richer are getting richer and the middle class is getting poorer. This is, the issue here is that there's affluent, areas, Brentwood and Palisades, they don't have restrictions, but in middle class areas like Rancho Park, Cheviot Hills, they're being restricted, and this is affecting our property values. Thank you.
Richard Rossetti, Chris Crago, Fred Larian, and Robert Silverman.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to yield my time, if that's okay to talk.
We don't yield time. That's against the rules.
I'll take my minute.
Okay.
I'm opposed to this, and I'm opposed to it because I'm a middle-class person.
Can you speak into the microphone,
I'm
please?
a middle-class person, and I think that the second part of this is draconian. I'd like to build a little larger house, not a McMansion, but I'd like to build a little larger house on my property, and this would definitely restrict my ability to build a home for my children and their children. So I'm looking at a house that perhaps is 2,500 square feet, and in accordance with some of these, I'm on a 5,000 square foot lot, and I'd like very much to be able to live on that lot and use it, enough of it, to build a home that will support my children and their children, size-wise, without being overly
Thank you. And to the audience, I ask that you keep your comments to yourself. If you have something to say about a public speaker, we are asking for them to keep the same respect to you when you speak, and that just keeps things going a lot more smoother here. Thank you.
Thank you, John Council. Chris Crago, new resident in Mar Vista, young family, moved into a residential neighborhood, bought a 4-bedroom new home for a growing family. 3 months later, I find out about this last night. I'm all for controlling mansions, 5,000, 6,000 square foot, but that's not what this is about. This is way too extreme in the second part, in that my 6,000 square foot lot, you do the math on it, you can't build a family home there. What this is really going to do is it's going to tank my value in my current house that I've got my life savings, my wife's life savings in, because it's going to stop growth in our neighborhood. A lot of our houses around us are 900 to 1,000 square foot bungalows. These are being built into family homes, modest, 2,500, 3,000. You can't do that with this bill. When that stops, money's going to stop coming, families are going to stop coming, our schools are going to suffer. Moved into a neighborhood because I thought it was going to be a growth, family-oriented neighborhood, and now it's going to stall out because of this. It needs to be adjusted. I don't want it to go away. I just think the second part needs to be adjusted and looked at. Thank you for your time.
Fred Larian, Robert Silverman, Susan Levinson.
Fred Larian. I was part of the advisory group which was set up by the City Planning Commission about 7 years ago, which formed the current BMO. I think there was nothing really wrong with it. It was a negotiated solution after a lot of hearings and discussions, and now here we are again without notice. I for one was not informed of it. The other thing is by not giving an incentive for proportional buildings. The new ICOs will encourage the very boxy buildings that it's trying to prevent. We need more investment in our city. We need our tax bases to go up, and we need to make it easier for people to do business in LA, not to make it harder. Thank you.
Thank you. Fred Larian. I'm sorry, that was Fred Larian. Robert Silverman, Susan Levinson.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, fellow council members. My name is Robert Silverman. I'm a resident of District 5, 2200 block of Veteran Avenue. I come before you in total disapproval of this ICO as it stands and as amended. How nice of them to give us back the garages. No one's living in a garage. Kind of nice of them to give us back that area. And as my neighbor was up here said earlier, these covered patios and breezeways create uniqueness in homes. And if you take that away as well, it's going to create more of the boxes that they were trying to get rid of. So I, for my family, hope that this goes away so the value of my home does not plummet as I anticipated happening. And the fellow homeowners in my neighborhood that are trying to sell their home now are all in limbo because no one knows what kind of home they'll be able to build on that property based on this ICO as it stands, which is a complete disaster. I implore upon the board to please disallow the ICO as it stands, and I am in favor of the HPOZ that should be separated out. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Susan Levinson, Ezra Gale.
Hi.
I oppose this vociferously. You know, there's about 100 people here, and this thing affects over 10,000. That's because nobody knows about it. It took me about 45 minutes to figure out where this meeting was even taking place because it was basically hidden on the web. I live in Cheviot Hills. We got lumped into this citywide thing. There's no sort of, every neighborhood is different. The Palisades, Beverlywood. It needs to be systematized. You need to take your time. The fact that you won't only let every single person speak so that you could vote today makes me feel like the ship has already sailed and you've already made up your mind. And it's sad because I got both of my kids at the public school, and now I'm sure our schools are going to be affected. Why don't you take your time? Let's do it right. Let's figure out a way not to have these big boxy buildings, and let's do this in a way that allows everyone to participate. That's what this country's built on. Thanks.
Thanks. Ezra Gale.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Ezra Gale. I'm with the Building Industry Association. We represent 1,100 businesses that engage in homeowner construction throughout Los Angeles, as well as all of the businesses that support them. We recognize the critical importance of supporting area identity, as well as the need for community continuity and neighborhood scale and character. In addition to these values, we also strongly believe in the transparent public process as a critical key to the legitimacy of land use regulations throughout the city. Simply put, a key component of good neighborhood planning is public input. Now, unlike a formalized process such as updating a community plan or a design guide, this ICO advances the agenda of a very small minority without providing an adequate commentary process for the vast majority of residents affected by the proposed ordinance. Now, in order to ensure that 226 homes are not redeveloped, the city is looking to take action against the property rights of over 38,000 homeowners. For these reasons, we strongly oppose this and look forward to community plan updates as a mechanism for protecting our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Izzo, you spoke on this already, correct? You were Lydia Ponce? Spoke on a different item, not this item. Lydia Ponce, Don Hunt, and William Funderburk.
Lydia Ponce. Here we are, we have supposedly not a mechanism to measure affordable housing, but yet there's so many approvals of permits, and the decimation of Venice continues. You have to actually be blind to not see the McMansionization. So on the west side of Lincoln. So I think you forgot one amendment, dear sirs. I think you forgot to amend to add the west side of Lincoln Boulevard. Thank you.
I'm Don Hunt, President, South Hollywood Neighborhood Association. Our neighborhood association has supported since, I believe, October when this was first brought up, the ICO. We continue to support this, and we hope you get this done quickly because more houses are being torn down and more houses are being built. And by the way, there's been a lot of notice of this.
Great. Thank you. And just, we received some cards after the public speaking began. The public speaking closes as soon as we begin that process. So no more cards submitted to the clerk, please. Don Hunt, William Funderburk. Oh, that was, you were Don Hunt, right? Okay, William Funderburk. Barbara Whitkins, thank you. Katie Melody. Robert Young.
My name is Amy Galladay. I urge you.
I'm sorry, ma'am. What's your name?
Amy Galladay.
Oh, I called you earlier, correct?
Was there someone in front of me?
Yeah, I called Barbara Whitkin right now. Yes, thank you.
Hi, my name is Barbara Whitkin. I am Area 7 Chair from Hollywood Hills West Neighborhood Council. I'm not here today representing the council, but I am here to mention as a member of the community that Hollywood Hills West did submit a letter supporting the ICO. And I hope you have it on file there. Also, I live on Courtney Avenue, and I'm in a historical zone. We want the ICO as soon as possible because we're being inundated by McMansions. I had a Sears Kid house across the street from me that was magnificent, that was torn down, and now I have a huge building. It has ruined the design of our neighborhood. Our neighborhood was built in the teens and in the 20s. We also had the Getty surveyed us, and we are 82% historic, which qualifies us for the ICO and an HBOZ. I really would appreciate if you would please approve the ICO.
Ma'am, I haven't called your card up. If you filled up a card, I haven't called it out yet. So we'll get to it if you filled out a card.
I filled out a card.
Okay, I haven't gotten to it.
Okay, do you want me to?
No, we're going to have to go through our cards first, and then I'll call you up when your time comes up. Katie Melody, Robert Young.
Hello, thank you. I live in Mar Vista, and since moving there a few years ago, I've heard many times that the reason people should be able to build these houses is that people should be able to have what they want in the home where they live. Most recently, I heard from a prominent Mar Vista realtor, Granny dies, the kids sell, and this is what people want. However, in this case, as in so many, individual wants do not exist in a vacuum, and they directly impact others. Individual wants, and those solely driven by profit without consideration of living in communion with one's neighbors or the character of the neighborhood, do not a community or neighborhood make. I will reinforce that what makes my neighborhood and so many in LA a desirable place to invest not only money, but generations of living is the character of the neighborhood, a character reflected in a design that considered scale, and scale that reflected consideration of neighbors and neighbors' privacy, and the effect of home size within the context of the neighborhood. Those who stand to profit most from out-of-scale development are often the same people who have no stake in the long-term effects of the behemoths they build and sell and leave behind. We don't always get what we want.
Thank you.
We don't always get what we want. That is why we have laws and ordinances in most areas of our lives.
Robert Young.
Yes, my name is Robert Young. I'm a board member of the Oaks Homeowners Association. The Oaks neighborhood in Los Feliz is one of the 15 neighborhoods that's being considered in the second part of this. We were aware of the hearing, and the majority of us fully support these regulations. The character and livability of these neighborhoods is being threatened. We encourage you to vote for the proposed interim control ordinance. We always believe that the point of moving into a home in a single-family residence neighborhood was to live in the home, not to build it to the maximum and try to make a killing. We hope you support both of these ordinances.
John Alsop, Clark Carlton, and Bahar Batizadegin.
Just simply in support of including Venice in the ICO.
Excellent, thank you. Clark Carlton.
Good afternoon, my name is Clark Carlton. My area of North Beverly Grove supports an ICO modeled on the RFA for Beverly Grove, which works very well. Attached garages must count as square footage as they add to the size of a house. The residents of the areas that are plagued by mansionization no longer live in a democracy. We have invested our lives and our money in this area and paid our property taxes because we love our neighborhood's prevailing character. But a tiny minority of opportunistic developers have decided the character of our areas for us and continue with the brazen building of their hated McMansions. We need to reverse this today. Thank you.
Bahar Batizadegin. Amy Gallaudet, you're next after Bahar, and then Quasi Nkuma. Welcome.
Yes, hi. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
here to speak on behalf of the neighborhood of Venice Beach, and with a group named Power, People Organized for West Side Renewal. As someone who has been a victim of gentrification and a creative spirit in Venice, it's really a shame to let this go, and I really find it as a detrimental force to all people in life in general, because diversity is a spice of life, and humanity and neighborliness is such an essential to the well-being of all people, it seems. And I see the people that victimize others for the self-interest and for the sake of material wealth and idolatry are themselves often very much hurt as well. So I hope that we take a responsible stance of this. Mahatma Gandhi said, wealth without work, enjoyment without conscience, knowledge without character, business without morality,
Thank you, ma'am.
science
Your time
without
is up.
humanity, religion without sacrifice.
Ma'am, your time is up. Thank you very much. Amy Gallander.
Again, Amy Galladay.
Gallandent.
I would like to repeat from the Wilshire Community Plan Policy 111. Protect existing stable family and low-density residential neighborhoods from encroachment by higher density residential uses that are incompatible as to scale and character or would otherwise diminish the quality of life. I beg you to please support the ICO. Thank you.
Quasi.
Yes, I'm Quasi Interim. I'm the co-chair of the Martin Luther King Coalition of Greater Los Angeles, and it's interesting the range of different types of groupings from all over the city who are speaking out about this. And really, what people are crying out about is simply basic idea of livability in the city and in the communities that we live in. I have a development 2 doors down from my home in Echo Park. The developer said he was going to put little cottages up the hill. 4-story giant structures all of a sudden appeared, built very rapidly. I don't even remember there being hearings held on them. I come down here, you all see me down here quite a bit. I can't even find a parking spot. Why? Because now all the parking facilities are being converted into gigantic structures, housing structures, that money is being made on hand over fist. We need policy that will protect us. This is a small step. Please take it.
Adder Malikan, Adenal, Mark Lipman, and Antonetta Villamil.
Adewale. I'm a Venice community resident. Although we are in agreement with the proposed changes as far as the curtilage and the garage space being no longer considered part of the property, we ask that you include Venice, the west side of Venice, into the changes, the minute changes that they've made. And we also ask that you guys, that the council enforces the Mellow Act, which would protect the affordable housing that we have in Venice currently. That's not being addressed. Thank you.
Mark Lipman.
Good afternoon, Mark Lipman with Power, People Organized for West Side Renewal. Venice is in a state of emergency. We can no longer sustain this irresponsible development that is destroying the heart and character of our community. Right now, at this moment, we have over 350 permits pulled for demolitions and development in our community to primarily build up all these big box mansions. And I'll tell you whose names on all these: Tammy Party, making money hand over fist off of our community. We can no longer support our affordable housing because of these bastards who are out there trying to use our community as an ATM machine. And we need a historic preservation zone to protect what we have left. And I'm ashamed that you do not have an ICO for west of Venice right now. We are one of the most historic places in the city, and we're overlooked time and time again. It's time you do something about it. Venice needs an ICO, an interim control ordinance, today. Thank you very much.
You're
My name is
Antonietta Villamil? correct?
Antonietta Villamil. I'm here to ask you to include Venice in this ICO. We need to preserve the community. It's one of the last playas of color where diversity and everybody is welcome. We have a very diverse community, and we need to protect was that from what I see is mostly foreigners that are coming to buy these properties and then turn them into profit machines. So please support. I support the ICO, and please include Venice.
Charles Brown, Paula Strom, Constance Bokedis.
Charles Brown. I live on Mansfield between Wilshire and 3rd, and since first time
Speak up into the microphone, please, so we can hear you.
First time I came to one of these meetings, there were 10 McMansions between Wilshire and 3rd on Mansfield. Since then, there have been another 2. It seems that the rate of destruction of the houses is accelerating. I would like to add that none of the houses that are being built, that are being scraped and then built, are being done by residents. They're all by outside developers. So when I hear residents say they can't build their house, well, read the ordinance. First of all, it's interim. Second, it allows larger houses, or it allows us up to 50%. Let's see. And then, as far as signatures, supposedly a number of those are internet signatures come from any place.
Thank you.
My name is Paula Strum. I live in Westwood. I've lived there for 35 years. I'm changing my talk for just because I want to address those. I have in back of me, I have a house that was just built. It's 5,000 square feet, and the garage is 3,000 square feet. And I would like to invite all of you to come to my home, where I have enjoyed a quality of life for 35 years until these people decided to build their dream house. Their dream house is our nightmare. And you have a lot of nightmares growing around the city, and it is not fair to all of us who have lived and been good citizens all this time, and we are being dumped on. Thank you.
Okay, I'm a lifelong resident of Westwood and serve as chair of the Land Use and Planning Committee, both for my homeowners, Comstock Hills, just north of Century City, and the Westwood Neighborhood Council. Both boards are on record in support of Koretz's amendment to the BMO. I support Paul Koretz's ICO Model D and his efforts to bring some reason back to the BMO. In addition to looking at the giant boxes that overshadow their neighbors and ruin their neighborhood character, you must focus on the environmental footprint of these huge boxes. I beseech you, both councilmen who spent a lifetime supporting progressive positions. We just went through 4 days of over 90 degrees heat. We're going into our 4th year of drought. Vanuatu has disappeared. Let's not talk about the East Coast. But global warming really begins at home, right when a house is being built. What amount of materials, air conditioning, heat, water, will sustain these giant boxes? It's up to you. You have the power to set the tone for our children and grandchildren. We have to pursue a path of less is more and impose these eminently reasonable regulations on ourselves.
I'm sorry.
Okay, it can't always be about the money. Thank you.
Now, there's a comment we could stay on for days and weeks and months. It can't always be about the money in life. Jen, Rick, what's that, Rick? Thank you. Jonathan Tucker. Landris, Bruce Landris.
Hi, I'm Jan Reichman, president of Comstock Hills Homeowners Association. I'm terribly proud of the 2 previous speakers who are neighbors of mine.
The BMO was intended to improve aesthetics of our neighborhood and help the environment, but instead it has created a monster feasting on bonuses and loopholes that have created a real hazard for the homes that are already there. I've seen a beautiful Spanish house completely shadowed by a big box. There's no more light going into it. There's no view that used to be there. The other thing I'd just like to refute is I've been a real estate agent since 1978, and there is no reduction in property values, believe me. There are multiple offers on every single house that's out there, so don't buy into that baloney and support the ICO. Thank you.
Jonathan Tucker?
Yes, my name is Jonathan Tucker. I'm representing the Citrus Square organization, which was only reactivated based around this mansionization issue. I've personally walked from La Brea to Highland, south of Beverly and north of 3rd to collect signatures. We have submitted that petition to Councilman Koretz, and we're grateful for his support. We have 80% of the residents in our neighborhood support this ICO, RFAs, baseline mansionization ordinances, and HPOZs. Nobody's going to be happy with this ICO. So I ask you to be very brave. There are going to be developers who are going to be able to circumvent it, and there are going to be families who are unable to maybe build their dream home. But this is the very best that we have. It has been a protracted process. We have worked very, very hard for a long time in our communities, and we very much ask you to please get this ICO signed today. We are losing our homes. We are losing the rhythm of our community, and I would like to raise my family in homes that were built in the 20s in a historic community. Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Dr. Bruce Landris. The members of the council here. My wife and I have lived in Comstock Hills for approximately 38 years. We raised our children there. Now, for the first time over the last several years, we're seeing the lots in our neighborhood being massively overbuilt. This McMansionization is destroying the integrity of our neighborhood. And it's just a plain eyesore. You can't say it any other way. They tower over our neighbors. They encroach upon our neighbors. They're just inappropriate. Our community of Comstock Hills unanimously supports Councilman Koretz's ICO Model D, and we urge you to pass this forthwithly. We're not anti-development. Many of our neighbors have actually built or rebuilt their houses, but they did it proportionate. They did it within the integrity of the neighborhood. And just for the record, my wife and I rebuilt a house also 20 years ago, and we managed to survive without building an 8,000 square foot house. It's amazing. And that's my time. We urge you to pass this measure, please.
Thank you. Marlene or Marcine Barbadell?
Marcine Barbadell Landris, third generation Los Angelian, public servant, and I mean servant as a reading specialist, teacher, and I have spent 39 years teaching children the importance of learning limits. That's part of human development, but it's also part of building developers and their development. There is no such thing as people who make a profit off of development knowing how to do that within the constricture of the integrity of a neighborhood. They look for one thing, and that's profit. We in our neighborhood, that guy just before you who spoke to you is my husband. We built within the integrity of our neighborhood, and my son presently is looking for homes. He's looking in homes all over Los Angeles, and he's looking where there is integrity and where there is a constancy among homes, because he's been reared with the idea that more is not better, and he can afford whatever he wants. So I'm saying to you, this is not about what we have in our pockets right now. This is about maintaining neighborhoods and the integrity of Los Angeles that has been blown. So I urge you to support this particular structured idea that Koretz has put forth.
Thank you. Shelley Wagers, Sue Belgelman, Todd Jerry.
Shelley Wagers, Beverly Grove homeowner. Reinstating the exemption for attached garage space does not get it right. It gets it wrong. Attached garages add 400 square feet of bloat to houses. They do away with the much-needed buffer of a driveway running between properties. Failing to count that square footage gives developers a 400 square foot freebie, and it subverts the purpose of a mansionization ordinance. The exemption should be eliminated from the ICO for the lower Council District 5 neighborhoods. For the love of God, move the ICO forward, and please insist that work begin immediately on BMO amendments that reflect the intent of Councilmember Koritz's original motion. Our city needs and deserves that protection for mansionization citywide well before the end of this calendar year.
Thank you. Sue?
Good afternoon. I'm Sue Beidelman. I'm a resident of the 10th District. I live in Faircrest Heights, and I'm also the land use chair for the Pico Neighborhood Council. I am here to support and urge you to adopt the ICO that includes Faircrest Heights, and also to move ahead with mansionization, with the base mansionization project. I would have said all of the things that Ms. Wagers said, except she got here before I did, so you can applaud me too. Thank you very much.
Jerry.
Good afternoon. My name is Todd Jerry. I'm a 13-year resident of the Mar Vista neighborhood, also a former resident of the Gregory Ain HPOZ tract in Mar Vista. I'm also the chief operating officer of a prominent architecture and construction company focused on residential construction. We are very much in support of baseline mansionization reform. The current code needs to be reformed to address the massing and volume of houses and not just the gross FAR percentage. However, specific to Mar Vista, East Venice, the ICO proposal of removing the bonuses and removing the exemptions results in a 35 to 40% reduction in what you can build. The amendment to allow the 400 square feet of garages I'm in support of, and I believe also there should be the 250 square feet for covered patios and double height stairs. Thank you.
Thank you. Yvonne Guzman, P. Anderson, Lisa Green. Yvonne Guzman, not here. P. Anderson. Oh, yes.
I'd like to submit for the record the over 300 building permits that we have had approved in Venice in the last year, and 36 in only the last 2 weeks. Venice west of Lincoln is being pillaged and raped, and we see no end in sight. We really need an ICO west of Lincoln. The results that this is having on our community is that it's obliterating affordable housing, threatening and prejudicing the local coastal program, and all but wiping out our protected coastal community. Can I ask you, you guys are like busy doing something else. I mean, I feel like I'm not being listened to. So I want to share with you these 300 permits that have been approved, and a lot of them are illegal. They're small lot subdivisions, they're CE exits, they're VSOs, Venice sign-offs. They are not in adherence to the Venice Coastal Zone Specific Plan. They're not in adherence with the California Coastal Act, and they're not within the letter of the law. So please see that we get an ICO west of
Your time is up, miss. Thank you. P. Anderson. Are you P. Anderson?
Yeah, Pam Anderson, Venice. I'm asking the council to work with the communities and stop the illegalities that are occurring in Venice each and every day. The CEX, VEOs, teardowns without permits, illegal Ellis Act evictions. Ooh, I lost my thing, Lord. Excuse me. Oh, come on, not now. Okay. The the Ellis Act evictions, people being displaced illegally each and every day, not protecting the rent and stabilization units, and especially the Mellow Act units that are disappearing each and every day. Every other community that we have viewed is getting relief from this mess. Help us west of Lincoln and Venice to get relief. Let's work together and grant Venice west of Lincoln the ICO interim ordinance. There was one granted in Venice in 1999. We are all on the California coastal, supposedly protected by the Coastal Commission, the Venice Pacific Plan. Thank you.
Lisa Green.
Lisa Green, Venice resident. Good afternoon, Council. Mass demos of homes replacing existing homes with considerably larger in width and height and leaving only a minimal amount for trees and plants has an adverse and negligent impact on nature. The inhabitants of these homes, bees, birds, squirrels, and etc., are part of our ecosystem, and through their support, we exist. The influx of development in our community at the expense of nature is unacceptable. How can we effect positive changes that will maintain or improve Earth's delicate balance? We are meant to be a more intelligent being because we have free will. Being human means being a steward and seeing our place in nature as a benefactor equal with nature. We have the power, and how we use that power matters. I support the ICO, but I also want the west of Venice included. Thank you.
Dick Plotkin, Jason Summers, Robert Yeager. Dick Plotkin, Jason Summers, Robert Yeager.
Dick Plotkin, 6400 West 5th Street. I strongly support the original motion from Councilman Koretz, which called for the elimination of all of the loopholes in the BMO, which allowed mansionization. This motion expressly called for the elimination of the garage exemption, and this is why I joined the previous speakers who have opposed the reinsertion of this exemption into Category D. You could achieve exactly the same problems by two simpler things that would stick with the original motion. You could take the language, and you would simply have to change the word required to the word attached. One little change in that, you would be able to address the question of garages, or you can do like you did 3 weeks ago and move lower council district 5 into Category G, which was there's a precedent for that would address the question of garages, and you would no longer have to conflict with the motion that you're supposed to be implementing.
Jason Summers, Robert Yeager, TJ Michaels, Bill Przinski, Prislek.
Hello, TJ Michaels representing SEIU 721 and the Fix LA Coalition. Hello, everyone. I'm not going to speak to the actual details. Everyone else has said that very eloquently. I just want to speak to the values for a moment of why we're here and why the 10,000 members who work for the City of Los Angeles at SEIU 721 stand with the residents in Venice and anyone in Los Angeles who is struggling to hold on to affordable housing. We as a city and as political leaders, you are all looking at how to raise the wage to $15 an hour so people can actually afford to stay here. So at the same time, we can't take a wrecking ball to the affordable housing as we try to lift up their wages and then figure out that we've got a solution for the city. We have to figure out how to make LA a better place to live and work for everyone, not just for the wealthy and the prosperous. And that's why SEIU 721 is here as Fix LA, standing with community groups like Power, and we strongly support the inclusion of Venice in the ICO. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Bill Przlecki. I'm the Executive Director of Power, People Organized for Westside Renewal. As you've heard from many of our members and allies today, we believe that the area west of Lincoln Boulevard in the coastal zone of Venice has been left out an oversight of any ICO. To the broader point, we do support all neighborhoods that are feeling the pressure from profit-oriented development where folks are treating neighborhoods like piggy banks, coming in, destroying neighborhoods, destroying quality of life. For all folks in the city, we need to see this committee and the planning department do much more to enforce the rules that are on the book and to create the right rules to protect especially the affordable housing in all of the stable neighborhoods that we have. We heard today the rules being used as a reason not to create an affordable housing unit. Meanwhile, we have the Mellow Act not being enforced properly and we're losing units we should be protecting. So we support the ICO and we want to see the coastal zone included.
Steve Diaz and Robin Robertson. Steve Diaz, Robin Robertson.
Robin Rudisill, Venice resident, and as the card says, I'm speaking on behalf of myself and not the whole Venice Neighborhood Council. I want to ask that you please either put a Venice Coastal Zone ICO on this amendment or please put forward a new ordinance for an ICO for Venice within the next 30 days with a temporary moratorium on building permits and demolitions until then. Venice needs an interim control ordinance immediately. We cannot wait for the local coastal program. We're not waiting for planners to learn or decide to follow the law. We are proposing and requesting an interim control ordinance or decide to follow the Venice Coastal Zone laws as soon as possible in order to assure that development prior to and during the ongoing coastal planning effort to prepare Venice's local coastal program does not prejudice or impede or negate the goals and policies of the ultimate certified local coastal program. Venice planning process is broken. Please help fix it by approving an interim control ordinance for Venice. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and that ends our public comment. Yes, sir. Yeah, we closed the public comment period right after we started the public comment. Great, thank you. What was your name, sir? Okay, Douglas Evans. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, welcome back.
Thank you, sir.
We had a very robust hearing the last time we met. It lasted a couple of hours, and this is one of the most, in my 16 years of elected office, one of the most impassionate discussions that I've heard. People are very passionate, they're very articulate, they're very prepared, and the debate is very controversial. People have made strong points on both sides. There's a desire to protect neighborhoods, and I respect that, and have a record that demonstrates that. This is called an interim control ordinance, and it means just that, interim. And my colleagues have felt compelled to bring this before us, and I respect them for doing this for their community and their district. It's one of the things that impresses me most moving from the state senate to the city council is there's tremendous deference for communities and neighborhoods, and there's a lot of deference for the actions taken and the proposals taken by our colleagues, and I will continue to defer to them. And so in this instance, I am prepared to do just that. But I want to talk about and take a minute to talk about, when we talk about protecting neighborhoods, I think we're talking about protecting environments where families can be raised. But the families of America have changed. And so things are different in America today. Boomers are leaving the workforce. Many boomers are moving in with their children. Many boomers are finding that their families are now moving in with them. So people now have a scenario where maybe the mother's passed or the father's passed. Someone brought this to our attention at the last hearing, and they want to bring their parent to their home. Some of us have children who go away to college, graduate, but still aren't in a position to buy a home. many of these millennials, they're called, move back home. Sometimes they bring their spouses. Sometimes they bring their spouses and their first child. They're not quite prepared to go out and find one of these neighborhoods that we're protecting. And so what happens is we have property owners, and I heard Mr. Rossetti speak up earlier, and I heard from another woman last week who, as Los Angeles grew, I mean, these are beautiful neighborhoods, and I applaud all of you for having the beautiful neighborhoods that you do and the homes. I have a preference for the Spanish architecture, but there's something the way we grew here. Our lots are large, our houses are smaller than the lots. They provide for huge yards for our children. But later, the utility of that doesn't seem to work for the new family in America. And so I'm going to move this bill. I'm happy to move it to support the interests of my colleagues. But I want us to, with great sobriety and great respect, think about the evolution of the family in the city and America. Because all of us here are going to see a change. Some of us will be that person who moves back to their children's home, or some of us will be that person whose parents in their final years move in with us. And we have to respect that and acknowledge that. And some of us will have homes that we want to make accommodations in, and that we want to make some changes to accommodate the changing American family. And it's challenging to think that for many property owners, they don't have that ability to do that. We have a housing crisis, we heard that earlier, and we have an affordability crisis. And as we create these zones, the question becomes then where do we address those concerns? Where are the concerns of affordability going to be addressed? They're not going to be addressed in these zones. Then where are they? And how do we do that in a way that's equitable and fair and that brings dignity and justice and fairness to all the residents of Los Angeles? I move the order, the motion for the ICO, but I ask that we continue this discussion. And I do so with the thought that we will do this as an interim motion and provide us an opportunity to have a richer and fuller discussion on how we grow as a city and as a nation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And I have two quick questions on this before we move forward. And just to be clear, what's the total amount of time that these ICOs might be in effect, and when can we expect a full BMO back to us?
This is Tom Roth from the Planning Department. This is for a maximum of 2 years, this ICO, 45 days, and we're going to come right back around to renew this in about a month. So it's a maximum of 2 years. We are, as part of the Recode project, we are speeding up the program to comprise some new contextual single-family zones that can be remapped to these neighborhoods, so we can have our community planners use those new tools. And then we are also in this. We are also looking to revise the loopholes in the baseline management.
So a maximum of 2 years, but how much do we expect it to come back? When would you expect us to get something back?
Something back in terms of new zones, or in terms of a baseline mansionization?
Yes.
Well, we have requested funding for positions to help us devise this ordinance. I said originally 18 months. I think that's still very doable. We still have to do an extensive environmental analysis, but we did say 18 months was projected, and we're sticking to that.
Okay. Sounds good. My last question is this. Since this will protect some or apply to some historic preservation overlay zones, some of them are in the process of either being deemed appropriate or not. What happens, how does this apply to that, whether it's going to apply or not, given if one potential HPOZ is determined not to apply or be historically significant? What happens in that instance?
Okay, again, Ken Bernstein for Department of City Planning. The 5 ICO areas that are the proposed HPOZs are all neighborhoods that have had historic resources surveys completed or almost completed at this point to evaluate them for potential status. We believe all of these are in fact eligible as potential HPOZs. So the ICO would be in place and prohibit during this interim period demolitions and substantial alterations so that the district is not eroded while we go through the process of adopting the HPOZs for those 5 neighborhoods. And we limited it to 5 because that's what we believed that as a department we could take on with the small amount of additional staffing that's coming our way during this 2-year period that the ICO would be in effect.
Okay, thank you. So it'll apply independent of whether they're deemed historically significant or not.
And we'll go through that process, and if some neighborhoods fall out or there's not a desire to go on as an HPOZ, the ICO would be lifted at the end of the 2-year period.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Yes.
I did want to address one thing that came up over and over again in the testimony about the western part of Venice. One main reason why that portion of the city was not included is that that's covered by a specific plan. So those rules are already in place. If the specific plan needs to be revisited, we could do that in a separate work program. But the point is that these 15 neighborhoods that are under this ICO are controlled by our baseline mansionization ordinance, which we're going to revise. So
thank you for that. I asked my staff about that since it came up. Well, thank you. So with that, we will move these ordinances forward to full council for consideration, and items approved and move forward to full council. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Next item.
The next item, Councilman, is an appeal by Mike Hernandez. It has to do with a wireless antenna located in CD1, and he's appealing the action of the zoning administrator, which recommended approval of the wireless antenna.
Thank you. We have staff here on this item. And just for the record, we have to announce that Councilmember Cedillo has been recused, and this is now a committee of 1 with no quorum, but we will hear this item here and send it to full council tomorrow. But we can do it one of 2 ways. We're going to send it to full council without recommendation since we do not have a quorum. So we could have the hearing or send it without a hearing since we are going to reconsider. We're going to actually consider it in full council, correct? But why don't you just give us a brief overview statement for the record, and then.
Thank you, Councilman Huizar.
Yeah.
My name is Jonathan Hershey. I'm a city planner with the Department of City Planning assigned to the Office of Zoning Administration. I'm representing the appeal at this time as the zoning administrator who initially acted on this matter is no longer available. This is a simple plan approval request by a wireless telecommunications operator to co-locate a new monopole upon an existing property. The property is presently developed with another wireless telecommunications facility. That facility is located within the bell tower of a church building. The proposed monopole has been approved with the design to be a faux or fake eucalyptus tree and has been conditioned to additionally have 2 real eucalyptus trees planted around it so as to create a grove feel and a grove atmosphere in order to further disguise it in appearance. The zoning administrator took both the plans, the proposal, the context in which the site is being proposed, the zoning and development and use of the surrounding area, and found that he was able to make all of the findings necessary in order to approve this plan approval. That plan approval was appealed to the Area Planning Commission, and the Area Planning Commission held 2 hearings on this. A great deal of testimony was received in opposition to this project. However, the APC really ended up focusing on 2 issues. The first issue being whether or not the facility could be located elsewhere upon the same property. And the APC also spent a great deal of time trying to consider whether or not there was adequate alternative site analysis associated with the project. Unfortunately, the APC kind of got lost on that latter issue. They sought to become the the first decision maker by considering new information that was not before the zoning administrator. They also pressed upon the idea of an alternative sites analysis, which is not a part of the required findings for either the conditional use for the facility or the plan approval which this seeks. There are only two fairly oblique mentions of alternative sites within the code and within the findings, and those really seek to discover whether or not the applicant was taking advantage of opportunities to co-locate the facility with another facility. That's a moot point. This project is a co-location, although they are not locating in exactly the same place as the existing wireless facility is. They are located upon the same property, and therefore they're considered co-locations. So with that, the Planning Department, the Office of Zoning Administration, just requests that the appeal be denied, that the zoning administrator's action be sustained, that the conditions and findings be adopted, and that the mitigated negative declaration is adopted as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Hernandez, appellant. We also have Elena Longoria, who will have 1 minute after Mr. Hernandez's 5 minutes.
I'd like to submit to the clerk some pictures, as well as the planning code in terms of co-location. Mr. Chair, as you know, I'm not new to this stuff. Councilwoman Cindy Miskowski and I actually worked on the policy to determine co-location, took testimony for over 2 years, and the planning department has managed to figure out how to stretch that beyond what we intended. And so to me, that was one of the things that was objectionable in this process. What I want you to understand is this was a typical bait and switch. What happened is the applicant basically said, we want to co-locate where there's a cell tower on a rooftop, and that was their initial application. And then the sites that they provided as potential other sites they could have looked at were rooftop sites, and they said that those two sites would not work because they weren't close enough or high enough. And based on that information, they then came back and decided to put this monopole on the southwest corner of a piece of property where the other antenna was co-located. They did not recirculate the mitigated negative deck because they felt that it wasn't necessary. Now, Mr. Chair, what I want you to imagine is you're walking out in front of your house, and within 70 feet to have a cellular antenna in front of you, a 45-foot antenna, because that's what's happened on Avenue 37. When you look at the pictures, they don't show what's on the southwest side of the street, a 60-foot street. What's on the southwest side of the street are single-family residences. The zoning administrator basically agreed that at the hearing of the appeal that he hadn't gone by the site himself until that day, but he'd already made his decision. And I think that that was a faulty decision because through our appeal, AT&T provided documentary evidence that there was 20 other potential sites they could have been looking at that could have qualified, but they did not submit those on their original application. And the policy requires them to do that. And so from my perspective, this is a very simple appeal. We feel that the zoning administrator did not basically get sufficient information from the applicant in regards to potentially co-locating an antenna at a different site, or even looking at the site where they wanted to locate where the appropriate situation would be. I was kind of amazed that the zoning administrator actually stated, well, for them to put it on the rooftop like the other antenna, it would be too high and they would need a variance. And there was no guarantee that they could get a variance for that, when in fact they were applying through the CUP process and they could have been applying for a variance from the very beginning. So I don't think the intent was to actually co-locate at the rooftop where you have another cellular antenna that is basically camouflaged by a steeple tower on top of a church. I think the intent all along was to put this pole on a corner piece of property, and that reality is it's not compatible to on a R1, R2 zone across the street. It doesn't look good. All the testimony you just heard were neighborhoods fighting for their neighborhood. And in our side of town, you don't get that kind of testimony. We've had to deal with a historic neglect terms of planning department, the tools to preserve those neighborhoods. I happen to live 3 blocks from that antenna on Arroyo Seco. And we're in the Cypress Park Neighborhood Council. The houses across the street, 60 feet away, are in the Cypress Park Neighborhood Council. But the applicant went to the Arroyo Seco Neighborhood Council, which is where the site is actually at, and got their approval. At no time did they approach the Cypress Park Neighborhood Council, and at no time did the zoning administrator ask them to do that. Who did ask them to do that was the council office, who was trying to get additional information because they didn't approach the council office from the beginning, was the council office. And so I appreciate the efforts of the council office. City attorney seems to feel that the council office, because of their involvement, has to recuse themselves. That's a bad policy. Next time you march against a battery facility and the city attorney says you're showing bias, you can't vote. We're elected to represent our constituents. I think the city attorneys aren't elected to do that. So my response to them is sue me. I want my constituents to know I'm representing them. But that's me. I'm here because I went through the entire appellate process. I'm before the council. I know you're the policymakers. I know that an opinion from this committee is very important for the full council to understand, but this would not happen in any other neighborhood. And I was appalled to see it happen, and that's why I've gone through the process. Thank you.
Thank you. Elena Longoria.
Mi nombre es Elena Longoria. Yo vivo en la avenida, al este de la avenida 37, en el 123. Yo vivo allí por 45 años. Ahora yo allí vivo con una hermana nomás.
Councilman, I think we need
Bueno,
to
la
translate what she's
razón que yo
saying.
estoy aquí,
Let her finish and then I'll translate.
la razón que yo vine aquí es porque yo no estoy de acuerdo en que pongan esa antena. Yo fui a hablar con el de la iglesia y me dijo, nosotros podemos tener 3 antenas. Ahorita hay una y podemos poner otra y otra. Yo estoy... no es mucho lo que da de radiación esa antena, es una gotita. Pero de gotita en gotita, yo digo que para la comunidad no está bien. Nosotros tuvimos una protesta cuando pusieron el metro, pero no que no lo queríamos, sino que queríamos que nos respetaran, que pusieran, que nos ayudaran a tenerlo bien. Y gracias a Dios salió bien. Yo no protesto.
Gracias.
Esto sí lo protesto porque...
Gracias. Yes, gracias. She stated her name. She's Elena Longoria. She's been a resident to live there for 45 years. The reason I came is because I am not in accordance with the antenna. I was told that we could put in 3, 1 by 1 by 1, but each is a drop and a drop and a drop, and it's not right. There was a protest at Metro, and thank God that turned out right. I usually don't protest, but that turned out right. And thank you for your attention. Gracias. Jim McQuiston.
Jim McQuiston. You know, 20 years ago we thought we could fight these things. And then somebody looked up to the law and said, no, it's out of the city's hands. You can't do anything about this because it affects interstate commerce. And the feds control that, and therefore you just have to live with it. And I think if we all decided that that was where we ended up, we could get a lot more done and go home earlier, and we wouldn't have to accept these applications because it's really out of the city's hands.
Thank you. So with that, Gerald Gubatan. Before I do that, City Attorney, I need your advice. You advised that this Councilmember Cindy recused himself because they had submitted a appeal before they withdrew it. Now, this is his representative. Now, it's okay for the representatives to testify?
Well, they understand the advice that our office has given, and they're comfortable with making a brief statement. anyway, this committee is not going to participate in making a decision anyhow. It's just going to be.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerald Gubiton, Senior Planning Deputy with Council District 1. This appeal is an appeal de novo, or a totally new hearing. Our office supports the appellant's appeal, that we believe the zoning administrator erred and abused his discretion. The ZA's decision was premised upon an acceptance of the applicant's representations and conclusions that the applicant's plan was the least visually intrusive. But the appellant, we believe, has made a fair argument to the contrary. The applicant admits it has presented an initial proposal to place the facility within a sign structure, then it modified it to present a standalone monopole disguised as a eucalyptus tree. Only two concepts were presented to the Arroyo Seco Neighborhood Council. Neither proposals were presented to the Cypress Park Neighborhood Council. The site is located on the border of two neighborhood councils. The immediately impacted residents fall within the Cypress Park Neighborhood Council. An alternative to place the facility on the existing church bell tower was never presented or vetted to either neighborhood council. So the applicant's conclusory statement that this alternative is infeasible is not supported by any evidence. The code does try to balance competing interests of the neighborhood and the applicant. It places significant emphasis on visual impact. So the question of whether the applicant's proposed plan is least intrusive or the alternative suggested by the immediate residents co-locating the facility on the tower is least intrusive is a question for this body to determine. The fact that a height district variance may be required does not automatically render it as infeasible. So we believe the appellant has raised a fair argument that supports the finding that the applicant has not acted in good faith to co-locate, as it summarily dismisses the collation on the existing facility without presentation to either neighbor council for further input. The proposed monopole will be surrounded by planting the two live trees. It raises a concern, as we know, about eucalyptus trees, which are a fire hazard, which would have an adverse impact on the neighborhood. Finally, the municipal code does require that all three findings be made in addition to the special findings for the wireless projects, i.e. that the visual impact standard has been met. And we believe that the visual impact standard has not been met. And so we encourage the committee to grant the appeal, not adopt the ZA's decision, and to adopt revised findings. We've offered up such language, and to not adopt the environmental clearance. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So given that there's no quorum, this would be a report from the chair without a recommendation to the council tomorrow, correct? Yes. Okay. And this is in council tomorrow? Okay. Great. Thank you. So order report from the chair. Thank you. Oh, one public comment card. Okay. William Cosmel.
So you heard me speak earlier to the issue of the fact that there's no McMansion problem in Granada Hills. We have an RFA that's...
Sir, you could only... I'm just checking.
It's a non-agenda item.
Non-agenda item. Okay,
it's
thank you.
non-agenda, but if you let me finish.
Yeah.
The RFA proposal for Old Granada Hills has been included in the new community plan, thereby circumventing treating it as a separate project, requiring notice to all the 1,211 homeowners that are going to be affected. This is a violation of the municipal codes that requires the city to notice everyone in those areas of a project that's been proposed, and this has not occurred, and it's a real problem. And I believe that city planning didn't properly vet Old Granada Hills in that issue. And if you don't want to have another situation where another community plan gets overturned because of violations that were contained and circumvention of public noticing, I suggest that you might start thinking about getting that pulled out of the plan. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And seeing no other items on the agenda, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.